to a photo shoot. If you are asked to go alone and they put up a fuss, then do not go. After you work with a photographer regularly, you can use your best judgment, but I really don't think that any professional photographer would ever ask you to arrive alone. It's different if you guys are like shooting in the lobby of Hexagon, right? But I'm talking like if they want to meet you somewhere and it's kind of a secluded place that you guys picked up for the shoot, you need to be careful. And that's just general common sense. I'm not saying that like model mayhem is populated with sharks. It's just you just need to be careful. Anybody can make a portfolio, right? So who you bring to a shoot is actually up to discussion. Photographers have a right to ask you not to bring a significant other, which I do understand. Most photographers, both male and female that I've worked with, they get kind of excited and use terms ranging from like beautiful or sexy. So like sometimes that can get a little bit weird with significant others. It's kind of like the Austin Powers, like yes, 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 no, no. Like they just kind of get lost in shooting, and it's not intended to be, you know, it's not weird. It's just kind of what happens. But significant others can sometimes make things a little bit uncomfortable. So bringing family members, friends, I brought a girlfriend with every time, and they were all excited because they take some photos of them too, and it was a fun thing for them to do. But I always provide contact information and location information to friends and family before you leave. Shoot in a public place, use your gut, you get a funny feeling, you know, don't stick around. And like I said, I've only come across one creeper in like 100 photo shoots at this point in time. Most photographers are absolutely fantastic. There is a chance that you can come across a photographer who decides he shoots better without pants on. And that is something that happened in Minnesota. And so, yeah, you gotta kind of just vet these people and use your best judgment. So these photographers are actually usually normally easy to weed out. Do your research, read the comments on their portfolios, Google search them to see if anybody's aired grievances. If they use the same model over and over, you're very welcome to contact them and ask for a reference. And again, I'm not trying to scare you guys. I just really want to stress safety over anything. There's 1 or 2 bad experiences in a ton of photo shoots, and it's just better to be safe than sorry, so I really wanted to stress that. So when you're preparing for a shoot, ask questions. Don't just show up or you will not be prepared and you'll probably be disappointed with the end results. So the basics are, where and when will you shoot, how much time do you need to block off. Make sure you have all the contact information that's necessary, such as the address, the phone numbers, arrival time, and so on. Arrive early to account for parking and unpacking. I did that once. I didn't anticipate that I'd be downtown, that I wouldn't be able to find parking. I was 45 minutes late for a photo shoot because I had to drag my luggage across this town, and it was, you really need to plan ahead for that kind of stuff. You don't want talent, because sometimes you'll have a makeup artist, hairstylist, clothing stylist, photographer, and 4 people waiting on you. And then they can choose not to work with you again. And these sites are social networks. People share referrals. So you want to make sure you're shared as a positive experience instead of as someone being unreliable. So ask questions. What are the terms of the trade? This is actually something that I think is extremely important to do, and I don't think that a lot of people actually do it. They don't establish what they will be getting out of it. And if you don't talk about that ahead of time, you can be really disappointed. And that's happened to me before. So ask, will you be receiving a CD or print photos? How many photos will you receive? Will they be processed or raw? Are you allowed to edit any of them yourself? Who chooses the final photo? Because I found over the years, photographers, and this isn't a bad thing, but photographers and models look for different things in photos. I mean, photographers that I like to work with, they often like to do the low shot to make your legs look really long, and then my face looks super round. And it's like, I want my face to look good. You know, so people look for different things, so make sure that you get a say in what the final photos are too. Ask if there'll be a model release, because sometimes these model releases, if there are, you need to read them carefully because they'll dictate what you can't use your photos for and dictate what they can use them for. So you need to read those carefully. And then ask what the turnaround time is for the photos. You need to be polite and realistic with your expectations, but you know, you should get your photos within a month, I think. So it's something that you're going to be like, yeah, you'll have it 6 months from now. You might want to reevaluate whether or not you want to shoot that person. And as your portfolio improves, you'll be able to negotiate these terms and dictate more of the terms yourself. So my stipulations are that I want minimum of 10 photos. If I invest $1,000 in a costume, I want at least 10 shots, and I want specific shots too. Like I want a shot of this detail, and I want a shot in the back, and I want, so as you get more experience, you're able to dictate that. The photographer, the makeup artist, and I get to jointly choose photos. That's how I like to work. We all upload them onto a site. We pick our favorites, and then we decide on which one's best for the makeup portfolio, which was best for me, and the photographer. I like to see the high resolution files because I sometimes do like desktop backgrounds and whatnot, that I have to have self-promotion rights because, like I said, those model releases sometimes won't allow you to use the photos. So you gotta be careful about that. And I also am avidly against extensive Photoshop that misrepresents me. What is that? Like, this photographer I worked with, I could not use any of the photos. I had to ask him to give me the raw files because he photoshopped me. That is actually, you know what? The computer's wider, so it doesn't look as ridiculous, but you can see like my thighs and my rib cage isn't really right. So that super annoyed me, and I never worked with this photographer again because he distorted my physical appearance. And that's something I don't appreciate. And so that's like a more normal one. That's one of the ones that I just did a little bit of color correcting and left it. But you have to dictate that because you'll have some people who decide to remove all of the pores of your skin, and then you end up looking fake, and then maybe you perpetuate like a rumor that you're not really genuine, or you know, they're disingenuous photos, and that's not something I enjoy or appreciate. So other questions you need to ask with hair and makeup and wardrobe, will that be provided? Weird things you may not think of, but like makeup artists may want you to have day-old hair, or hairstylists may want you to have day-old hair because it styles better. Makeup artists sometimes want your face dry, sometimes they want it lotioned with certain types of lotion. Should you bring eyelashes? These are small things, but they actually show that you take a professional initiative, and then it's something that will again help you be referred to other talent. And if shooting a costume, is that me or is that coming from somewhere else?
No, this hum is coming from here.
No, it might be the microphones.
Did you? Oh, wait. It's weird that it just started. So if shooting a costume,
There you go.
if shooting a costume, obviously you don't need to worry about the wardrobe, right? So if you are doing fashion as a practice, though, which isn't a bad thing, it's, you know, it's easier to just put on a dress and shoot that rather than immediately jumping into something that has a crown and shoulder pauldrons and like belts, and that's a lot harder. Am I too close? All right, you guys can still hear me? Am I projecting enough? Okay. So when you are just shooting fashion, kind of try out photography and learn your angles and whatnot. Bring more options than not. I would bring a suitcase full of stuff, and then you can figure out with the photographer what you want to shoot and what colors and cut and whatnot. So location, this is like my personal passion. Location is so important. So if you have a great idea for a shoot location, if your character is in this crazy, fantastical world and you think you have the perfect location for shooting it, just ask. You will be so surprised by how many people will give you permission to shoot in the weirdest places just because nobody ever asks, right? And so a lot of times they'll go for it. As a trade, you can offer up photos for their office or their website or promotion. Mention that you'll link to them on your blog, and find other ways to kind of barter to get access to their location. Because usually they'll have to have a representative there to kind of escort you or whatever. So you want to make sure that they get something out of it, but usually the self-promotion is just enough. So I've had shoots on a variety of really cool locations, such as a vintage theater for my Zatanna cosplay, the USS Midway for my Anya Starlight costume. That was crazy, like this giant ship in San Diego that I was just running around on, and they didn't care. They were letting me climb stuff. It was great. And I actually got some photos next to Amelia Earhart's plane in a plane museum. They didn't let me go in that one, but then the guys were like helping me up into planes, inside planes for other ones. So it was super cool how excited they were. If you have a chance, you want to visit the location ahead of time. If not, ask questions, seek out photos, make sure that it's accessible. Like, you're going to be hauling tons of stuff up to this location and it doesn't have a road to the last part. You know, you just need to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting into. Yeah, beware of laws. Don't necessarily trespass, or if you do, don't get caught. I did a shoot in like Minnehaha Falls in Minnesota, and I almost got fined like $400. So just be aware. Those electric photos were totally trespassing, by the way, in like a gravel yard. Just be careful. Don't go places that you're going to get into huge trouble. Be aware of that, and generally ask permission if you can. So here's a couple of those photos. This was none of that. Obviously, the floating skull is photoshopped. but like the backgrounds aren't photoshopped, the lights aren't photoshopped. We were in an old vintage theater. It was the coolest thing that I've ever seen. Sitting on, oh, you can't see it. The one on the left, I'm sitting in a giant magic trunk. It was great. And then there's on the USS Midway is Anya Stroud, and then that's one of Amelia Earhart's planes, or that was an original costume, so that was a lot of fun. Props, same thing as location, just ask. Post casting calls to either model makeup or one model place, but also just put something out on Facebook or even Craigslist if you're looking for a very specific item or location. And I'm not talking like a prop specific to your costume, I'm talking more of like a vehicle, cars and motorcycles, animals, or extras. You know, if you want a really tattooed up buff guy to be in your shoot, like just throw it out there. You know, people are usually excited to aid you because it's a chance for them to visit a photo shoot and you know, have either their belongings or them professionally photographed. So just seriously ask. It's amazing what you have available to you if you just ask for it. So that dog on the left, I got on Craigslist. I wanted to have a Great Dane in this Marie Antoinette inspired photo shoot, and I just put it out there. And they're like, yeah, will you take photos of him too? So we did these really cute dog portraits, and then got to play with them. And wow, those photos are super contrasty. The bike on the left is actually or on the right is actually my dad's, so I didn't have to go too far for it. But I've also had vehicles where, you know, just put something out there, ask on Facebook, see who has a really nice car for a photo shoot or whatnot. So asking is extremely, I don't think people try enough. They get a little hesitant to ask for professional places or whatever. It's amazing what you can get. So prepare yourself. Butterflies can be expected leading up to a shoot, but don't cave into them. In order to be prepared, make sure you know yourself and your costume. So when shooting a costume, always do a dry run, and I'm sure you guys know this, like going into a con. So you want to check for construction concerns, look for unflattering angles, or clothing riding up in a weird place, or your props going askew. I mean, knowing that stuff is imperative to making sure your photos turn out nice. Take snapshots to evaluate. Sometimes things photograph really weird, like colors or fabrics or whatnot, so just be aware of them. And if you can address them beforehand, then do that. If not, make sure you share your concerns with the photographer so they know maybe you need to avoid this, maybe we need to be careful and watch for this keeps shifting. And just having extra eyes on them during a photo shoot is a good thing. When it comes to actual shoots, some photographers are going to give you a lot of direction. Some just stand there and click photos and expect you to keep moving. So, in generally speaking, the awkward feeling poses are actually the coolest looking. So if you're really uncomfortable, you'll probably look awesome. But you want to take your time to study the angles and the outfit in the mirror beforehand and make sure that you're ready and comfortable in the camera. And then bring reference photos, especially for costumes, because a lot of times photographers, you know, they're just getting into this. They think this is exciting, but they don't necessarily know the reference material. They don't know the character, and so they can be, you know, like my Claire costume. And photographers like smile. I was like, no. You know, just make sure that they're on the same page, that they understand the tone and the mood that you're going for. And be thorough. Make sure, again, you ask those questions, you're prepared, because a lot of times if you're setting up something with a location and a hair person and a makeup artist and all that, you get one shot at it. So always over-prepare. This is so depressing. Half of my photos from the USS Midway were ruined because I did this thing. Oh, can you see it? Okay, so it's really hard to see. My belt it's down at an angle. You can actually see the metal piece of the belt below it, but there's supposed to be like this craft foam piece in front of it. So I was in a rush. I didn't finish my costume until the day before the con. I had to drive down to San Diego, and then I had an interview with CNN, and that was the first time I put on the costume was at this shoot. First time I'd worn it in its entirety. So I didn't know that the Velcro wasn't adhesive enough, and so half of the photos were ruined because this belt piece was hanging down by my leg, and you can't Photoshop that. I mean, the angles, you can't fix that. So I was really bummed out. Nobody noticed. I had a photographer and a videographer there, and my boyfriend was there, and the makeup artist was there, and nobody noticed. So if I had done a proper dry run, I would have known that I needed something stronger than Velcro, and I could have saved most of my photos. Another thing, this is super unflattering, but I'm showing it. Oh, you can barely see the arrows. I put on, this is the first time I put everything on, and I put on those arm wraps so tight to keep them on that they are super unflattering. You can see that they're cutting into my arm. It also cut off the circulation to my arms. Like they were going down. So that's another thing, like if I had properly tested out this costume, I would have not had that issue. So, shoot day, any tips? These are really weird things you don't think of and I've learned over the years. Don't wear tight clothing to a shoot because you risk having lines that take hours to go